Você lembra o que você fez, não? Ou não? Por que você fez isso? Mas por que você fez isso? Porque quis?
Ingrid Oliveira Bueno da Silva was born on April 25, 2001 in São Paulo, Brazil. From a young age, she was a quiet and shy girl, but she enjoyed making friends. Her mother described her as a stylish young woman who was always wearing makeup and loved dyeing her hair in all kinds of colors. Ingrid was passionate about cosplay. She often dressed up as video game characters at geek events, a hobby she shared with thousands of fans. But what she loved the most was the gaming world. By the age of 19, she was already a professional Call of Duty mobile player, a first-person shooter game that gained millions of players worldwide. Ingrid, known by her gamertag Sol, was part of the all-female team FBI Esports, competing in tournaments like Battle Girls, where she stood out for her impressive skills. In Call of Duty Mobile, players are ranked by levels, starting at Recruit 1. Ingrid reached the highest possible rank, Legendary. She spent hours each day training, competing, and perfecting her gameplay. Outside of gaming, Ingrid had big dreams. She was studying nursing and interning at a health clinic, showing her caring and dedicated side. Her family, with whom she was very close, described her as a loving person who always looked out for everyone around her. But Ingrid's life hadn't been without pain. At 16, she went through a traumatic experience that would leave a permanent mark. Searching for a relationship, Ingrid met a guy on Tinder. They had good conversations, and the relationship seemed promising. But when they decided to meet in person, Ingrid became a victim of forced sexual acts. This devastating event not only shattered her mental health, but also changed the dynamic within her family. Worried for her safety, her parents became extremely protective, closely monitoring who she interacted with, especially online. The trauma led her to seek psychological treatment. There's no available information about whether the man she met on Tinder was ever identified or arrested. Still, despite the emotional scars, Ingrid was making progress and showing signs of improvement. She found in online gaming a way to connect with others, make friends, and build a community where she felt seen and supported. But it was within that very space that she met Guilherme Alves Costa, an online friendship that at first seemed harmless, but would end in tragedy. Guilherme Alves Costa was 18 at the time and lived in Pirituba, a neighborhood in the northwestern zone of São Paulo, home to around 390,000 residents. He grew up in a modest household with his mother Rita and at least one brother. To his family, Guilherme seemed like a normal young man. He was quiet, shy, and helpful. He looked after his little nieces and pitched in with household chores whenever needed. His mother described him as a calm boy who often said his best friend was God. He attended an evangelical church for years, completed a theology course, and for a time dreamed of becoming a pastor, preaching at services and engaging with the religious community. But behind that mask of normalcy, Guilherme was hiding a darker side, one shaped by trauma and deep-rooted frustrations. As a child, Guilherme suffered from the abandonment of his father, an absence he never got over. He expressed intense hatred toward fathers who walk out on their children, even writing that if he could make laws, he would impose life imprisonment or the death penalty in such cases. Another major trauma hit in 2019 when his brother, whom he was very close to, died from drug abuse. It happened in the room they shared, and Guilherme was the one who found the body. The experience deeply scarred him. It shook his faith. He left the church and developed a growing hatred toward Christianity. At school, Guilherme was bullied, which only increased his social isolation. At 15, a harassment incident at school made him want to drop out, but his brothers stepped in and spoke to the person responsible. Still, Guilherme became even more withdrawn. He began dressing only in black and distanced himself from his family. His mother noticed a shift after his brother's death. He grew colder and more closed off. But the family, poor and lacking resources, never sought psychological help for him. Guilherme spent most of his time online, playing Call of Duty Mobile under the usernames Flashlight or Flash Emodius. He was part of the Gamers Elite team, a rival of FBI Esports, where Ingrid played. Despite being an active player, he didn't have Ingrid's level of skill, and was rejected multiple times when trying to join FBI esports. That rejection may have fueled a growing resentment. Online, Guilherme frequented dark forums known as Shans, notorious spaces where extremist groups spread hate and violent ideologies. Although he denied any direct involvement with Dogalachin, a notorious Brazilian forum known for promoting and planning violent crimes, Guilherme admitted to admiring Anders Breivik, the Norwegian terrorist who killed 77 people in 2011. Forensics on his phone, though limited due to deleted files, uncovered disturbing images and drawings he had made. Faceless figures with red eyes and eerie, violent themes. Guilherme had written a 52-page manifesto titled My Dictionary, where he unleashed his hatred toward humanity, particularly women, Christians, and his own family, whom he referred to as stupid, hypocritical, and naive. He described himself as a soldier in a war against Christianity, claiming his mission was to expose God's inefficiency through violent acts, like attacking churches. In the manifesto, he also admitted to being a manipulator, saying he wore masks to blend in with different types of people, a tactic he referred to as being a shapeshifter. He wrote, "I say what people want to hear. Lying is a psychological technique. I make my handshake feel trustworthy, my hug feel comforting." Guilherme expressed utter contempt for society, calling humanity useless and admitting he took pleasure in lying and manipulating others. He also confessed to hearing voices at night, which urged him to kill his family or commit other crimes. He claimed the manifesto was written under the influence of these voices. Still, he insisted he was fully mentally aware, suggesting a clear understanding of his actions and intentions. Guilherme lived a double life. To his family, he was the quiet young man who looked after his nieces and kept the peace. Online, he was a radical extremist fantasizing about violence. This duality, combined with unprocessed trauma and the absence of mental health support, set the stage for the tragedy that was about to unfold. Ingrid and Guilherme met in November 2020, about 3 months before the crime, while playing Call of Duty Mobile. They were teammates, often playing with other friends from different parts of Brazil, and soon began talking outside the game. At first, their friendship seemed genuine. Ingrid, known for her empathy, was moved by Guilherme's stories. He spoke about being abandoned by his father, losing his brother, and struggling with depression, things that triggered her desire to help. But Guilherme had other intentions. He developed romantic feelings for Ingrid, which she didn't reciprocate. Still, they kept talking, and Ingrid, driven by her kindness, believed she could help him. She often shared these conversations with her ex-boyfriend Alan, with whom she remained close. He was a kind of confidant, and Ingrid would tell him about Guilherme's disturbing thoughts. In one conversation, Ingrid asked Alan what he would think if she got involved with someone just to stop that person from killing a lot of people. Concerned, Alan asked why she would even ask that, but Ingrid brushed it off, saying it was just a thought. Later, Alan found out Guilherme had sent Ingrid a picture of what looked like a gun, though it was actually an airsoft replica. This raised red flags for Alan, who warned Ingrid to stay careful, but she insisted Guilherme just needed help. In January 2021, Ingrid and Guilherme met in person for the first time at a park in São Paulo. They spent the day talking, and Ingrid didn't reply to Alan's messages for several hours, something unusual for her. It's unclear what happened during that meeting, but later Guilherme told his brother that Ingrid had cut his stomach. Forensic exams later showed the wound was old and already healed, proving his story was false. A second meeting happened at Guilherme's house, where they ate Middle Eastern pastries called esfihas and played games together, with his mother Rita there. Ingrid introduced herself as Sol, her gaming nickname, barely interacting with the family and only speaking to Guilherme. Ingrid's family, however, was unaware of the true nature of this friendship. Because of the trauma she suffered at 16, her parents were very protective and suspicious of online contacts. To avoid worry, Ingrid lied, saying Guilherme was a co-worker from her internship at the health unit, which wasn't true. Conversations between Ingrid and Guilherme revealed his manipulative side. In messages, he said things like, "You must be mine. This is part of the sacrifice. You don't understand now. You're confused." Ingrid replied, "This isn't a book, Guilherme." He insisted, "Soon you'll understand the real reason." These messages, later found by the police, showed the crime was premeditated. Guilherme also shared with Ingrid his plans to attack an evangelical church. Interestingly, Ingrid, from a Catholic family, suggested that if he was going to do something, it should be against a Catholic church, because she didn't like her family's religion. Guilherme told Ingrid he was thinking about buying a gun, but she tried to dissuade him, suggesting, in his words, that instead of attacking, he should kill her and then himself, so they could be together in the afterlife. That was Guilherme's version. Ingrid told Alan about this conversation, but with a different twist. She said Guilherme threatened to kill her and then take his own life, and that if he actually did it, it would be a favor to her. This message worried Alan, who noticed Ingrid seemed sadder in recent weeks, likely influenced by her conversations with Guilherme. The week of the crime, Ingrid was off work, isolated at home with her family, waiting for a COVID-19 test result. On Friday, February 19th, Guilherme began insisting she come to his house on Monday the 22nd. He used a manipulative tactic, claiming he paid a tattoo artist friend to give her a tattoo and that the artist would be there. He also made an emotional plea, saying he needed to vent because he was feeling bad. Though hesitant and worried about possibly having COVID, Ingrid gave in, driven by her desire to help him. On Sunday, she sent Alan a cryptic message, "I hope everything will be okay." When he asked what she meant, Ingrid replied only, "everything," without details. Alan pressed, concerned, but she didn't clarify. Monday morning, Ingrid lied to her parents, saying she was going to work, then took a ride share to Guilherme's house. On the morning of February 22nd, 2021, Ingrid arrived at Guilherme's around 10 a.m. Rita, his mother, was still there, getting ready to work as a housekeeper. The three had breakfast together, and Ingrid sent Alan a photo showing her with Guilherme and his mother, trying to reassure him. Rita left around 10:30, leaving the two alone. Later, one of Guilherme's brothers also left for work, leaving the house empty. The house was small, with only two main rooms, a combined living room and kitchen, and a bedroom with a TV and a bed. It was in this bedroom, the same room where Guilherme's brother died in 2019, that the crime took place. There are no exact details about what happened between 10:30 a.m. and 1 p.m., but Guilherme told the police that he and Ingrid talked for some time. Around 1 p.m., Guilherme brutally attacked Ingrid. Using a Rambo-style combat knife he bought weeks earlier, Guilherme stabbed her more than 5 times in the chest. He also inflicted deep wounds on her neck, attempting to decapitate her. After killing her, he stabbed the knife into her stomach and left her body on the floor. Forensic reports confirmed that Ingrid was not drugged, nor under the influence of alcohol or drugs, and died from multiple stab wounds. There were no signs of struggle, suggesting she was caught by surprise, possibly attacked from behind. What Guilherme did next was even more disturbing. He filmed Ingrid's body and shared the video in WhatsApp groups and on social media, including his own WhatsApp status. In the video, he laughed and said, "Look at this beauty. Yeah, that's it. Let's go." When members of the Gamers Elite group asked if it was real, he recorded another video, this time on public transportation, saying, "You think it's paint or fake? No, I really killed her. I have a book. People are sharing it. I hope you read it. It has some truths." After the crime, Guilherme took a ride share to a neighborhood called Sumare. He called his brother, confessed to the murder, and said he planned to end his own life. His brother, desperate, convinced him to turn himself in. Less than an hour after the crime, Guilherme went to the police station and surrendered. When asked why he killed Ingrid, he coldly answered, "Because I wanted to. Read my book."
Você lembra o que você fez, filhão? Ou não? Por que você fez isso? Mas por que você fez isso? Porque quis?
Você tá rindo de uma situação, Guilherme. Você matou uma menina novinha, Guilherme. Por que você fez isso?
Meanwhile, Guilherme's brother returned home around 2 p.m. and found Ingrid's body. He called the police and emergency services, but it was too late. Rita, Guilherme's mother, was notified and arrived in time to see the body being removed. She was in shock. The police found a backpack in the wardrobe containing Ingrid's ID, but there was initial confusion since Guilherme's family only knew her as Saul. When questioned, Guilherme's mother said she didn't know who Ingrid was, complicating the initial identification. Police searched the database and located an old address belonging to Ingrid's grandmother and aunt. 2 investigators went there and asked a family member to come to the station. The grandmother and aunt, suspicious, contacted Ingrid's father, who went to the address. The news of Ingrid's death was devastating, especially after the family received the video of the crime, which went viral on social media. Seeing those images was indescribably painful. The investigation started immediately. Guilherme was caught in the act and his arrest was turned into preventive detention. He was transferred to a detention center in another neighborhood of São Paulo. In his statement, he admitted planning the murder for 2 weeks and handed over his manifesto titled My Dictionary, where he detailed his hatred for humanity and his intention to commit violent acts. The police faced difficulties in examining Guilherme's phone as he had permanently deleted files. Still, disturbing images were found. The public prosecutor's office charged Guilherme with double-qualified homicide, a petty motive, cruel means, and a method that hindered the victim's defense. Feminicide was ruled out. A mental sanity exam concluded in September 2021 determined Guilherme was sane and fully aware of his actions. The report pointed to psychopathic traits, lack of empathy, and a tendency toward repeated behavior. But in Brazil, psychopathy doesn't exempt criminal responsibility. On the contrary, it can be an aggravating factor. The defense hired a private psychiatrist who diagnosed Guilherme with persistent delusional disorder and antisocial traits. But this report wasn't accepted as primary evidence. The defense pushed for criminal irresponsibility, claiming he heard voices and suffered from schizophrenia, but this was contested. In Brazilian criminal law, criminal irresponsibility can lead to psychiatric hospitalization, which experts say may be worse than prison because it has no fixed term and depends on danger assessments every 3 years. Guilherme Alves Costa's trial was postponed twice, in March 2022 due to missing documents, and in May because of absent witnesses. On August 8, 2022, Guilherme went to trial in the criminal court. He was sentenced to 14 years in prison for qualified homicide with mandatory psychiatric follow-up. Many considered the sentence lenient, as qualified homicide in Brazil can carry up to 30 years behind bars. In 2023, Guilherme gave a new testimony claiming he had help from 4 people in planning the crime: Gabriel Vilares, Carlos Eduardo, William Maza, and Vitor Hugo. All 4 were arrested in the Discord case operation and are under investigation. One of them allegedly recorded a cruel call to Ingrid's father, mocking her death. The case is still under scrutiny. Questions remain. Who was Guilherme really? A traumatized youth who lost control or a manipulative psychopath? His manifesto, My Dictionary, offers clues. He admitted to wearing masks to deceive, describing himself as a shapeshifter who manipulates to get what he wants. He wrote, "I take pleasure in lying and manipulating. Lying is a psychological technique. I make my handshake trustworthy, my hug comforting." That duality was clear. At the police station, he laughed while confessing, showing disturbing coldness. Later in interviews, he appeared downcast, claiming amnesia and faking remorse. For the defense, he needed treatment. A young man traumatized by his brother's death, abandonment, and bullying. For the prosecutors, a psychopath fully aware of his actions. Psychopathy, experts say, is marked by lack of empathy, manipulation, and narcissism. Guilherme showed these traits, proudly filming and sharing Ingrid's body, mocking the victim, and boasting about the crime. The report confirmed psychopathy, but emphasized he was not in a psychotic episode. Psychotic breaks involve confusion and losing touch with reality, something Guilherme never showed. He acted with clarity and arrogance, like when he told the police, "Read my book." The defense claimed he heard voices, but that feels like manipulation. He even admitted using that story to justify his actions, a classic psychopath move pretending to be insane. His obsession with mass killers and hate symbols on his phone only prove his fixation on violence and control. Ingrid, a victim of her own kindness, believed she could help Guilherme overcome his trauma. He exploited that empathy, manipulating her with stories and false promises. She died because she cared too much, a brutal betrayal by someone she considered a friend. The case exposes Guilherme's family's fragility. Despite their humble efforts, his mother missed the clear signs of his mental decline. Lack of psychological support, combined with trauma, created the perfect breeding ground for this dangerous personality. Ingrid's family was devastated, especially after the video went viral. Her father published an open letter calling the murder premeditated and expressing solidarity with Guilherme's family. Rita, Guilherme's mother, gave an interview holding a Bible, saying she didn't recognize her son in that act. "The son I raised was not this one," she said tearfully. The gaming community also felt the impact. FBI Esports posted a tribute, "We'll remember Saul every time the sun touches our skin." Fans paid respects inside Call of Duty Mobile, kneeling in a virtual church. On the flip side, some online groups celebrated the crime, treating Guilherme like a hero and sending cruel messages to Ingrid's family. The case exposed the dangers of toxic online communities and the urgent need to address mental health. Ingrid was betrayed by her own kindness, a victim of a manipulator who exploited her empathy. Her story is a warning about the risks of online relationships and the importance of recognizing danger signs.